By 1966, the Beatles had all but disappeared from BBC Radio. However, there was the now customary Beatles programme for August Bank Holiday Monday. On the 29th of August, while the Beatles were in San Francisco for their last ever official concert, John and Paul were heard in the Lennon and McCartney Songbook. The programme was devised by a producer who would rise to be controller of Radio 1, Derek Chinnery. It's thanks to Derek that the programme master tape has been preserved over all these years.
The Beatles, of course, were already tremendously popular in 1966. And for the first time, we found artists outside the pop field recording their songs. People like Ella Fitzgerald and even the band of the Irish Guards and people like that. And I thought it would be interesting to get John and Paul to comment on what they felt about artists which, to a previous generation, were already great big stars, recording their songs. So Keith Fordyce and I trotted up to St John's Wood, to Paul's house, and showed them the list of records that we were going to play and tried to get their comments about it.
4:30, and now the Lennon and McCartney Songbook, introduced by Keith Fordyce with John Lennon and Paul McCartney themselves.
Well, that was the Irish Guards recording of She Loves You. And the Irish Guards are just one of many and literally varied people who've recorded compositions by Lennon and McCartney. I've got a list of at least 300 recordings that have been made in this country alone by all sorts of people who have taken a fancy to different types of Lennon and McCartney songs. And the two gentlemen concerned are sitting with me now in the sitting room of Paul McCartney's house. Starting off with a question about, do you ever resent anybody else recording your songs?
No.
Never. No, never.
It's all good. It's all good stuff, whatever anyone does with it. They always make it different and normally better than we did.
You seriously mean that?
Well, yes, quite often. Yeah.
I don't agree on that point, Paul.
Not always better than you.
John doesn't agree.
No, it's just the opposite, I think. But it's still good them all doing them.
But do you get more interest out of artists who are perhaps, unlike yourself, solo artists, say, the Peggy Lee type? Does that interest you more than another group copying your style?
Yeah. That's what I meant, actually, when I said I don't necessarily mean they're sort of much better.
Oh, well, I agree with you now, Paul.
That's the thing, really, that when they do them, when people like Peggy Lee do them, then it's they do them different, and it's probably just a bit better because it's different for me.
It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog. It's been a hard day's night, I should be sleeping like a log. But when I get on to you, I find the thing that you do will make me feel all right.
I think Paul was quite interested, not necessarily as amazed as I thought he might be that these people were recording his songs or their song. John, bless him, was far more cynical about the whole thing and said, why don't you just play our versions? He didn't seem to understand that people, certainly of my generation then, thought it was wonderful and something special and great that their songs were being recorded by so many different artists. If John didn't seem as interested in the concept of making this programme as Paul was, it could have been for a variety of reasons. But for a start, we were in Paul's house, and we were sitting in the living room on the floor, if I remember, and John was wandering around the place, and we kept stopping the tape and having to sort of try and get him to come back and join in the conversation, because his comments, we thought, would be valuable.
Close your eyes and I'll kiss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you. remember I'll always be true. And then while I'm away, I'll write home every day and send all my loving to you.
That was Matt Monro with All My Loving. How far do you feel that your individual talents are dependent upon each other? I mean, are you sort of Gilbert and Sullivan or Rodgers and Hammerstein? Do you need to work together as composers?
No, not really, but it helps a lot.
Just on the old maxim of two minds are better than one.
Yeah.
You get another point of view as well.
The thing is, because we can do them on our own, but often one of us will just do a song and there'll be, say, one verse in it that's very bad or something, and it's very corny, and if I've written it, then I'll sort of take it along and sing it to John. And he'll say, that verse is terrible and that verse is corny. Come in, Mrs. Higgins.
Because you still get so involved with something, you finish it, and if you're on your own, you haven't got the energy to go over it and sort of see, if it really makes exactly what you want. So if you sing it over to each other, even if it's a finished song, with almost the arrangement, it's still sort of, yes, that's fine.
Your milk, John.
Thank you, Mrs. Higgins.
Oh, thank you.
It's really nice of you, that.
Mrs. Higgins arriving with 3 glasses of milk.
It's not even Mrs. Higgins either.
Oh, well. Yeah, put my bus right.
It was Mr. Higgins.
Oh, yes. Do you consider that do you consider you think alike, or that you think differently and therefore help each other?
We think nearly alike, but pretty differently at the same time. But I mean, we can write a song, say like Day Tripper, where we've got to write one, and at the same time be the same writing it. We can write it thinking the same thing about it. But if we each wrote it individually, it'd be a completely different song.
Yeah. Well, there's a slight difference in this one. We're going to hear now Lena Horne with And I Love Him.
I give him all my love, that's all I do. And if you saw my love, you'd love him too. And I love him.
The programme, as far as I remember, was quite well received, probably by the older generation listening rather than the youngsters who might have agreed with John. Why didn't you play the Beatles records? The whole concept was just an idea that I had at the time, that something unique was happening here that hadn't happened before.
Have you written any songs specifically for people? Did you write Wait for Frankie Vaughan?
No. We weren't thinking of Frankie at the time. But we used to write in the early days when we had more time to write for other people. I'd always seem to be. That's the only time
we wrote one for Helen
people.
Shapiro, and Kenny Lynch did it.
Yes.
We wrote one for Cliff and we did it. And Billy J and those days were the only ones we really wrote for people. We thought we had some to spare.
It's been a long time now, I'm coming back home. I've been away now, oh how I've been alone. Wait till I come back to your side. We forget the tears we cried.
Frankie Vaughan with Wait. The songs like And I Love Her, If I Fell, Michelle Yesterday, the more winsome type songs. Do you find yourselves able to write in this mood at a particular time of day or night? Are you nighttime writers or?
You'll have to excuse the dog, listeners, but he doesn't know we're on the radio.
How old is this dog?
7 weeks, actually, 7 weeks, so it doesn't really understand about the BBC yet.
What type of dog is it?
Old English sheepdog. It will be eventually.
It's a young English sheepdog.
At the moment, it's a spaniel.
Right, what have we got to? Oh yes, these songs. Do you prefer writing at night? Are you night workers?
No, any time really. When you're awake. Not too near the morning when you're half asleep, and not when you're tired, so it doesn't matter what time it is, but just the period when you feel quite healthy.
Do you use piano, guitars, what, when you're playing?
anything, you know,
That's
piano
about all
or
we can do.
guitar. Yeah, that's about our limit.
But I'm just finding I don't know enough chords to write them with the guitar, so I'll have to get some old fella to come in and play to me.
It's got to be an old fella, though.
Yeah.
Couldn't be one of these young whiz-bang kids, you know.
He wouldn't have time.
Well, there it is. It's been very enjoyable in your own, in the incredible quiet of your own sitting room, Paul.
It's very quiet in here, Keith, except for the dogs howling and the clock ticking. And
Otherwise,
well, it's been nice to have you, really.
John,
Very
thank you
nice.
very much too for coming over.
A pleasure. It was
Away
most
from your
enjoyable.
home.
Anytime you're
Nice
around,
pad he's
pop
got,
in.
isn't it, as they say in the teen raves.
Teenage rave. Well, thanks, Keith. And if you're ever around this way again, pop in.
And as Paul McCartney invited Keith Fordyce to pop in again, just like to remind you that Keith Fordyce will be inviting you to pop in again Tuesday lunchtimes at 1, starting on September the 27th, when the doors open for a new season at the Pop In.